a couple months ago. In fact, it was October 3rd, 9 p.m. My husband Don and I were sitting on our living room couch watching a movie, and it was a very intense point in the movie when an explosion was just about to happen. And all of a sudden, we heard this boom, but it wasn't on the TV. So we jumped up, we rushed out to where the sun porch, to this big picture window, and we looked out and we saw that a SUV, a black SUV, had hit the tree in front of our house, flipped over, landed on its roof, which was crushed, the whole front end broken off, and the engine smoking. And then I saw that there were these two legs wiggling out, getting out the driver's seat window. Well, Don ran for the fire extinguisher. I called 911 and I ran out after him and saying, Don, be careful. Be careful. Don't get too close. You don't know if there is gas leaking. But I no longer saw those dangling legs, and there was no body standing around. But my neighbors all started to come out, some of them with fire extinguishers, other calling police. In a few minutes, the police were there. They got out flashlights and they began to look inside the van. They looked in the front seat through the window. They looked through the window into the back seat. No one was inside. The airbags had all been deployed. And one of my neighbors said, I helped that young boy out of the window. And Don said, there were two young boys running down the block when I came out with a fire extinguisher. Well, we couldn't believe it. It was like, what we were standing around thinking, what happened to those boys that ran away? Are they okay? And one person said, I was just walking by this corner 10 minutes ago, walking my dog. And I said, yeah, and what if it hadn't hit our tree? If it had rammed into our house, it was right where Don and I were sitting. So it turned out it was a stolen car. It had just turned the corner too fast. And the police took off after them in the direction that the boys ran. We stand out there, we waited, we tried to understand what had happened. Some of us just stayed out there for the next 2 hours, waiting for the tow truck to pull the car away, waiting for the police to leave. They never found the boys. It was hard to sleep that night. The next morning, Don and I went out to look at our tree, and we could see that a big piece of the outer bark, about 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide, had been ripped off, exposing only the inner core of the tree. We called the Oak Park Forest Division. An inspector came out, examined the tree, said, it's best just to leave it. The tree knows how to heal itself. Wow. This towering tree, it was a big linden. This towering tree that shades half of my house from the heat of the afternoon sun. This tree that I gaze at every morning when I have my coffee. This tree has the knowledge to heal itself. And then I know something else about trees, and my good friend reminded me of it. Trees live in communities. There is fungi underneath the ground. There is this interconnected web of life that links trees together. Fungi grow underneath, just right underneath the ground. And they grow from the sugar that the tree produces from photosynthesis, from the sunlight. And they form this mass of threads that go out underneath the ground among the roots. And these threads soak up the nutrients from the soil that go back up into the tree to nurture and feed the tree, like carbon and nitrogen and phosphorus. And these massive threads underneath the ground are called mycelium. And they reach out and they connect to other trees nearby. And that through that system, they can send water and they can send nutrients to nurture new seedlings, to nurture trees that are sick or diseased. I thought, I know that story. I remember that. That is amazing. So I put my hands on the bark of my linden tree. And my tree friend said, "Tell her you love her." And so I did. And then I looked around at all the other big trees in my yard, and across the street, there were oaks and maples and sycamores and spruce and hackberry, now all activated to send healing nutrients to my lovely linden. And I walked just a few doors down the block to where there had been this big, old maple tree that had to be taken down just a few weeks ago. And I went and I looked at the stump that was 5 feet in diameter. And I thought about those roots, those expiring roots that were just sending all of the nutrients down to my linden. All of those trees, her community of trees. But then I thought about, what are about the trees that aren't connected? What about those trees that are left orphaned, especially the young ones, when all the other trees of her community are cleared for new developments? What about the tree that stands alone in a Walmart parking lot? What about those boys? Those 2 young boys, young men, that somehow survived and ran. Do they have trees? Where were they running? Do they have roots to receive them? Do they have connection, communities, networks? Will they learn from this trauma? Do they know that they can heal from within, but not alone? My linden was traumatized. But she has her community of trees supporting her, sending her healing energy to make her strong and healthy again. She has her community. And that brings me peace.